We're now going to make scones. I think they're essential and absolutely perfect for every afternoon tea.
I would be very disappointed if there wasn't scones, because when my mother used to take us for afternoon tea at this really sweet 1950s department store near our house, we used to have scones. So for me, that you can't have an afternoon tea without scones.
All your childhood memories.
But I've never made them, so I'm excited.
Fantastic. Well, it's thought that perhaps scones originated in Scone Palace in Scotland, where all of the Scottish kings were crowned. Or it might have come, the word might have come from the Gaelic word scone, which means a large mouthful. So sort of like a large or a few mouthfuls, perhaps.
I was going to say, if you can eat a scone in one mouthful, you are doing well.
Very well. Right, so shall we crack on? So first of all, what we're going to do is we've got flour. And we're going to sift that. We want nice and light and fluffy scones. We're going to sift that into our bowl.
We don't want rock cakes, do we?
No. Nowadays, scones are more traditionally associated with the West Country, so sort of traditional cream teas in Devon and Cornwall, where they're served with jam and clotted cream.
Yeah, see, I'm a traditionalist. I like mine with lots of butter and jam. I mean, clotted cream is great, and I will eat them with clotted cream, but if I had a preference, it would be for butter rather than cream. Probably better for the waistline as well.
Well, I'm rather partial to the clotted cream myself. And then we need to have our cream of tartar and bicarbonate of soda. This is going to make them lift up and make them really light and fluffy.
Right, so are we going 1.5?
So we're going to go for 1.5 teaspoons of bicarbonate of soda. And then 3 teaspoons of cream of tartar. This is going to make them extra light and fluffy. So just sift that in. Okay, now we've got our diced butter, so I'm using unsalted butter. We'll add salt to season it, but I think it's easier to start like that. And this is cold butter straight from the fridge, and we've diced it up into small pieces. We're now going to rub that in. So if we just tip that in. Now, when you're rubbing it in, you want to just use your fingertips. It's great if you've got coolish hands. So if they are very hot, it's often worth running them under cold water. And then you're very lightly, not going to press really hard, just really lightly sort of like rub it through your fingers and let it drop back down, bring it up like this.
So we want breadcrummies.
Absolutely.
Breadcrumb-like consistency.
Now, as we're using unsalted butter, we might want to just add a pinch of salt. Super.
So do you always use sultanas, or do you sometimes prefer them plain?
I always love sultanas in mine. What about you?
I'm a sultana girl. Any excuse for a bit of sugar.
Well, maybe I'll make mine plain and you put sultanas
Okay.
in yours, and then we've got a mixture if everyone fancies something a bit different. And try and lift your hands up a little bit higher like this and just let it sort of almost rub and drop through your fingertips. How's it looking? So really gentle. That's it. Almost like fine breadcrumbs. Just make sure you've got rid of all those bigger bits of butter.
Yeah,
just
still
squash
got
those.
some
The other
pretty
thing
big
you can
lumps.
do if you don't want to dice it, it's a quick way to do it is to, when the butter's really hard from the fridge, just put it through a coarse grater. So literally just coarsely grate it
Grating
through.
butter.
Yeah, that's quite a good thing to do.
That's genius.
It really does make a difference there if your butter's nice and cold straight from the fridge. Make sure you've got all the bits up from under the bottom so everything's mixed in, because you don't want the flour only mixed into some of the butter.
Yeah, it's good you said that, because I had a large deposit of flour at the bottom.
And it's supposed to be that as you're lifting it up like this, you're adding air in, so you're making them extra light. We need to be careful later on when we're pressing them out that we don't squash all that air that we've taken the care to put in.
You better remind me, because I'm always squashing them down.
There you go.
Could you add blueberries to scones?
Yeah, blueberries are delicious. I tend to add dried blueberries.
Right.
They're really good. And people add lots of different things. You can be quite inventive. You could add like little chunks of white chocolate, or put dark chocolate and cranberries in, sort of Christmassy ones, and a little bit of spice. They're really versatile. And then of course you could do savoury ones. So you could put in some cheese, grated cheese. There we go, I'm done. Yours looks lovely.
I'm quite proud of mine.
It looks fantastic.
Excellent. Right, what's next?
Okay, so now we're going to, because we're making sweet scones,
Yeah.
we're going to add the sugar. There's yours. And we'll just stir that through, just so it mixes in and incorporates. Now you're going to make sultana ones, so you want to add those now as well.
And you still add the same amount of sugar even if you're adding sultanas?
Well, I do, just because this is the standard recipe that I always use. If you wanted to take a little bit out, you could. Or you could not add the sugar at all if you don't want to. I just think it's rather nice to have that sweetness. Lovely. That's super. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use 3 eggs. I'm just going to move this a little bit out of the way. 3 eggs, and we're going to break this into our jug, and then we're going to mix them up to the right amount of liquid with some milk. And this is another thing to make them lift. We don't want flat scones.
No. So I now just mix this up a bit?
Yes, mix it up with your fork. And now we're going to add some milk to make it up to 425 millilitres of liquid.
Right. Perfect.
Now, just mix that in a little bit, just to check it's all combined. The important thing is at this point, you now want to use a knife. You don't want to put your hands back into the mixture. So we're going to add the liquid, but we're just going to add it a little bit at a time with our palette knife.
And sort of cut like that?
Yes, cut into it.
And the reason you don't use your hands is it becomes a big mess?
Yes,
or?
it just yes, but also because it becomes very heavy. So what we're going to do is use the knife. So we're adding it quite gently and keeping all of the raising agents and all of the lightness in our mixture. Something very homely about making scones, don't you think?
Yes, it's definitely something that I don't think of doing much at home. You know, I can imagine I bake cakes occasionally for special occasions, but scones, I think so many people just go out and buy a scone. But as you said, it's really nice to make them yourself.
Actually, they're really quick and easy. They're great to do if you've got friends who've come round and you just want to do a very quick something at tea time.
I think if my friends came round and I told them I'd just baked scones, they'd probably fall off their chair.
You're going to have to surprise them next time they come.
Okay.
They do want to be quite sticky.
Right.
Sometimes people get nervous and want to add more flour, but actually you do want to have them quite sticky. It stops them from being too dry when they're cooked.
Because that's the thing, sometimes you get that, so you know what I mean by claggy?
Yes.
Dry, so like...
Very heavy.
Heavy. Perfect. Right.
Fantastic. So we now need to roll them out and cut them out into sconchos.
I'm not supposed to press down too hard, am I?
No, don't knock out all that precious air we put in. So here's a baking tray, so you're ready to pop all your cut out scones onto them. So we're going to need a bit of space as well. Now again, as I said before, we don't want to add too much flour, but you will need a little bit on the worktop just so that it doesn't stick. So if you just want to put a dusting on. I don't tend to use a rolling pin. I think that you knock far too much of the lovely lift you've put into your scones out if you use a rolling pin. So I just gently press it down with my fingers.
It's going to be much more authentic that way anyway.
Well, I think so.
Sure, they didn't use rolling pins in Scone Palace.
So let's just do half of it at once.
What, half of the...
Half of the mixture, as you're going to have a huge amount of sort of quite sticky dough. Feels lovely. Oh, there we go. And just literally just take the stickiness off it like that. Okay, and then we're just going to press it down gently with our fingertips, but not too much. You want to leave them quite high. I think scones are quite nice, quite tall. Because
you split them in half anyway, usually, so...
Exactly, but it's nice to have them not really thin, each part. Then I've got a bowl of flour here. We're just going to use that to dip our cutter into so it doesn't stick. And when you put your cutter in, it's really important to go straight in and straight out. You don't want to twist it because that pulls the dough and then they don't rise in a straight line.
Okay, in and out.
So straight down. You see all that air that puffs, you can feel it puff out and straight out. And then we're going to put them straight on.
Oops, mine's been left behind.
To our baking tray. Fantastic. And you want to try and get as many as possible out of this first batch because they're always the best and the lightest ones. You can tell whether it's a good scone, whether it feels all light and fluffy and airy.
I have to say, I'm feeling oddly positive about my scones, but then they do say pride comes before a fall, so...
They look fantastic.
So when I get the sort of endy bits like that, can I roll them up again?
Absolutely, you can roll them up, but try to handle them as little as possible because the more that you're handling it, the more you're knocking the air out. The other thing that sometimes people do traditionally is they make a big round of scone and then cut it into quarters. That was one of the sort of more traditional ways to make scones.
Right. I've got one little runty one at the end.
Oh, that's a little taster one perhaps.
And now do I use the rest of this? No?
Well, I think let's pop these ones in the oven first, shall we? But before we pop them in the oven, we just want to brush the tops of them with a bit of the egg mixture that we've got left over. So,
And does that make them shiny with a nice golden
lovely
top?
golden glaze on top.
Excellent. So how long do we put these in the oven for?
Well, they go into a really hot oven, about 220 degrees for the first 5 minutes, and then you need to turn the oven down to about 180 degrees Celsius for the remaining 15 minutes. They're slightly smaller, you want to reduce the cooking time.
There we go.
Lovely.
So you'll be going clotted cream.
Absolutely, definitely. Jam first.
Jam first.
Yeah.
Someone told me there's a difference. Like in Cornwall they do jam first, and then in Devon they do...
I think that's right. I think most of my childhood holidays were in Cornwall and we had jam first, then clotted cream.
But in Devon they go crazy in the aisles and they put cream, then jam.
Absolutely.
Scotland they probably just put salt on.
Perfect.
Okie dokie.
Let's put these straight in the oven. These look heavenly. Yours look gorgeous.
They are my first ever scones. I'm not sure that I get top marks because they're definitely a little on the wobbly side. They don't have a straight edge, but hey ho.
They've risen beautifully though.
They
Look at
have.
This one.
Do you think I can eat one?
Yes, I'm just going to choose. We're going to break them. Here you go. I think we should definitely try them before
Okay, yeah, no.
we put them out for everyone. It's splitting beautifully.
Almost.
Okay, well I'm afraid I'm going Cornish. I'm going to go jam, then cream.
So you're going to go jam then cream. Well, I think I'm going to have to go cream then jam. That's really good.
Nice and light, fluffy.
Really fluffy. I mean, I'm amazed actually. Quite proud of myself.